I'm with the actor Jackie Lamb? Jackie Lamb. I was sort of on the prowl at Planet Organic when I saw Jackie reading a book that I love.
Rennie Edulodge's Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People about race.
So what drew you to reading something like this?
I mean, I could go on about like the impacts of and effect racism has, like from personal experience. But you know, why are people racist? Why are these specific ethnic groups targeted by the majority? Understanding the problem a little bit better is, I think, is the first step to solving that problem.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, reading this drew me closer to, you know, all these problems about what the black community is facing in Britain. The treatment that they get are essentially from the same demographic that would treat me with that same sort of like prejudice. You know, it doesn't relate to me directly, but I feel like it's something that I should at least understand and know about.
Are you often having discussions about race? I'm really like interested in hearing how people actually do have those conversations, especially in their like friend groups. I know for me, I'm always like that girl who's gonna bring up race. Like, oh no, Felicia's gonna talk about racism and how, you know, everyone's racist. I mean, are you doing that in some regard with your friends?
Yeah, sometimes a lot. Because being an actor as well plays a really important factor, I think, because with like the media and how different races are portrayed in film, television, radio, music, all that stuff. If I'm with a group of friends, the way I speak about race is to, for example, talk about how, you know, minorities aren't represented in the TVs that we watch, which, you know, coming from my line of work is something that affects me directly. What we see on television has such a big impact on society and how we go around thinking. In the day of the internet, you know, we can learn about an entirely different culture like within 5 seconds. And we have so much access to so much information, and you know, that brings us all closer as worldwide as one community. Since all this information has become available to us, when we watch TV again with this new information, that's when we start questioning, like, why are we not seeing these multicultural faces?
Do you ever feel sort of like you shouldn't speak up on that, or do you feel like that might sort of determine if you get a role or not, if you're sort of like, more Asians?
Because I was so young and fresh in the industry, I did have that mind thought of, you know, just being professional, not speak up to the casting director that's in the room. If I have to do an accent, fine, I'll just have to go through it and hate myself for it afterwards slightly, which has happened. Like within the first year I graduated, there was one series, I think I was playing like a Chinese restaurant manager, and I had to, and the funny thing is, it was old in the script. I was like 22. It was, but you know, I love Chinese. That was enough to go for this role. And I remember in that particular audition, just doing it in my own voice, and they were laughing. They loved it. It was hilarious. And then they asked me to put on the accent, which I did, and hated myself for it. So what, like 3-4 years later? There was one role where I had to, it wasn't so much the accent, but it was the kind of other stereotypes, tropes that come with how East Asian males are portrayed in media, like, you know, where the more like beta males, you know, where we're always like the laughing, the gag in whatever show or whatever it is that we're in.
The brain, or the smart guy.
Or the loser, the virgin, and all these like just god awful stereotypes. And then I just asked them, like, are the writers open to like you know, reworking certain you know, character traits in what was in the script?
Yeah, good.
You know, they just have to get the whole spiel off. No, sorry, it's all written up already. Like,
okay.
it's going to be what it is.
Being told constantly, you're, you know, loser. Your words, not mine. The loser or the not good enough or whatever.
Well, the thing
those
is,
things. Like, how did that impact sort of like what you thought of yourself?
I mean, I grew up in a place where there weren't that many East Asians around.
Okay. Where did you?
And so this is I was born and grew up in Huddersfield, West Yorkshire, so it's quite a long way from London.
Okay, that's in England for anyone.
Yeah, it's still
it's
England,
okay.
right?
Yeah.
But I can't sit here and say which specific moments in my life had made an impact in how I see myself and how I identify myself as. I can only just say with the attitudes that I was brought up around, it has sort of like beaten down is quite a harsh term to use, but yeah, it molded me into the person or the kid that I was growing up. In my childhood days, I would just stay at home. I wouldn't ever go out to play because even though there was a big children's park, 2 minutes across from my house that I grew up in, every time I go there, there's someone that's making fun of me for whatever race I am. It's not just that. It's all the other days and all those other little moments. Like with a lot of people that even if they assume correctly that this person's English isn't great, I'm gonna have to talk down, and that's my problem. Is the way that people talk down. It can come across as like very patronizing. It's important to acknowledge that. It's important to acknowledge it so that you understand racism. It happens every day, and it can happen in the smallest of ways as well.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't. For me, it doesn't take a Caucasian person to come out right in front of me and shout the C word. Not the universal C word. My cultural specifics.
Yes.
With racism, the whole idea of it dehumanizes a person. Because whatever race you're from, each person, they would have their own unique experience, their own life choices, and whatever makes them that person, the personality. So if you are just kind of boxing them into these kind of racial stereotypes, then that just strips away everything that makes you a person, right? The character that you are. So it dehumanizes you, and I think that's what the purpose of racism. You're still stripping away, Jackie Lam, and you're just seeing me for the Asian characteristics that I have.
So, you're British. You grew up here, but you identify as British and...
If you're going to have to put one singular box around it, then I would identify myself as British East Asian. There is a lot of discussion going on in London about how other East Asian cultures are kind of not recognised. Like, it's just Chinese people. In Britain. There's no Japanese people, there's no Korean people, there's no Vietnamese, whatever. And there's a lot of them. I identify myself as British East Asian as just to kind of acknowledge that I am part of this greater community where we're all facing these kind of problems with race in Britain. When I was going through my teenage years, I had this real problem mentally and psychologically about how I identify myself and where do I call home. Because in Britain, the place I was physically born and brought up in, I'll walk down the street and people just don't acknowledge that I'm British.
They don't, I hear a lot, like, when it comes to minorities in Britain, they're usually... they're asked, oh, so where are you really from?
Do I have to explain the hospital that I was born in, the address, and the doctor that gave birth to me? No, I'm just born here in the UK.
So it's like that acknowledgement of you're not even British, even though you're clearly British. Now, let's talk about dating. I'm really curious about sort of how dating works for you. Also, just because I remember when you were talking about, with the stereotypes, that you get, or people assume these things about you. Have you found that it's been difficult dating in London?
At least the way I was brought up, I kind of have been shaped by outside perspective. You know, I'm that kind of person that when I was young, I was really self-conscious. If people see me a certain way, then that has an effect on me, and especially with like the opposite sex and stuff. So I've never been like that comfortable with, you know, just that whole courtship. Like in my head, it's nothing to do with my race. It's just the person that I am, the character that I am.
Yeah.
But you know, with the way I've been treated in the past, that's just kind of how I've been shaped up and brought up as. And that's why I think it's important to like break down those stereotypes to eliminate that pain.
Yeah.
But also that people can then grow up and like be confident about themselves and not have to like worry about, oh, I'm an Asian guy. Does that make people uncomfortable? Does that make girls uncomfortable? Like, why should anyone ever ask that question?
Yeah. So then dating, how's it? So then it's
how's
really
it going in London? I imagine it's a completely different ballgame for other people. I was on Tinder. I've been using it, and I get a match every 2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
And even within those matches, not a lot of the girls reply back. You know, so sometimes it feels like, oh, they just kind of like swipe right, and then like when the match goes, they go, oh, then they decide, no, I'm not going to talk to you. But then recently I was in Hong Kong, and I decided to just try it out. I was just kind of curious about how it would pan out if I was in a place like Hong Kong, where it's like I'm part of the majority, as opposed to a minority in the UK. Within a minute of swiping, because it's quick, right? You can just do that for a minute, and that's still a lot, right? So about a minute of swiping, I had like almost 10 likes, matches.
Oh.
I mean, I guess there's some aspect of who I am, Jackie Lam, but I was blown. My mind was blown. The fact that I'm not a minority anymore. I'm part of the majority, and that alone has its benefits. That I'm deemed as a sought after demographic in Hong Kong. Whereas here, it's the complete opposite. And it's that difference that that I do kind of like bringing this scenario up to compare those sort of perspectives. You know, how I, as an East Asian male, are perceived in, you know, in Britain, we're seen as the like probably the least sought after males, you know, in like the heterosexual game. But in Hong Kong, I'm
really
right up there.
Yeah. What's one thing you would do to end racism? Like if you had a magic wand and you could like solve this issue, what would you do?
I would get a device, wrap it around every single person's eyes, even if the brain, if they can send direct messages into their head, and just show them the world. From every corner of this earth. And just show all the different cultures and all the different, you know, the joys that people take pride in and stuff. Because if you don't take that out of context and just see the effect that it has on the people within that culture, then, you know, that's when people understand more. Because I think racism, it stems from ignorance and ignorance of different cultures. If you don't understand anything, there's always going to be some sort of like anxiety or fear. What can I do about that? Oh, then that I've got to belittle whatever it is that's making me have that fear. So yeah, if you learn more about, learn all the cultures, if anything.
Yeah, learn them all. Everyone. I mean, even though individually, like every person's fear then sort of creates that like racist state, but then obviously it plays into like the structural aspect of a society, right? So like this fear of this person or that person then goes into like different policies or different what's represented on TV. Well, thanks so much, Jackie. This has been great.
We should make it a regular thing.
Yeah,
like a speed race date.
That would be
You'd have one person represent a different race.
There's another idea for you. Speed race dating.
Yeah, and that's how we understand all the cultures better.